I think that those, I think that those will probably be fresh ideas, communication about your meetings, things coming up, and news that is coming fast and furious all the time.
Perfect. Any questions about that?
I have a question, Bev. I work with Pennsylvania's Fire Safe Council, and we have a good web pages up now, and we're trying to find somebody we can hire from the Fire Safe Council to help drive viewership to that web page. And so can you give us the name of what that person would be, and do you have any suggestions of who we could hire to help drive viewership on that page?
I attended a Zoom meeting yesterday where the Just Serve organization within the church had hired a company that was doing just that for Just Serve. And I wrote down the name of that company in my other notes. I don't have it on the top of my head, but Mike, do you remember? I see you raising your hand.
I'm just adjusting my mic, sorry.
Oh. Okay. So I'll get back with you outside this meeting to see if they may know of some areas, some people that do that for the San Diego area. And I'd be happy to talk to your team as well to just, see what you're doing and any ideas that I might have that would help.
What part of the county do you live in?
I live in Santee.
One of the things we talked about is if some of you have newsletters, and I'll use Mike DeGroff from Poway Steak as an example, we'll put out a monthly.
Actually, weekly.
Actually, what?
It's weekly.
Okay, he's a go-getter. For his board members on tips, and different things for them to consider themes for the month or the week or whatever. So if you have some of that you want to share, I think we could have a landing spot for that so people can, if they're new to the calling and need a jump start onto, what they should be sharing, they could get some additional resources that way. So
I have a theme for every month. Like this month's theme is 72-hour pack. So I started it last year, but this year I'm going to start including pictures. And my wife and I are actually going to do a 72-hour pack exercise tomorrow night. Throw everything in the car that we think we need. We're going to drive out to the Ramona airport in the dark, and then we're going to see if we could spend the night there. And we're going to actually have dinner out of our 72-hour pack, see if we can. I don't think my wife's ever eaten this kind of food before. It's mostly all backpacking food. And enough water in our stove and all the things, just see how it all works. We're going to take our daughter with us. So this will be interesting. I was going to invite the whole ward to participate, but I ended up working out of town all week. I just got back and I didn't have time.
Will you? Do you think you'll be taking a camera with you so that you can catch?
I mean, we'll have our cell phone. I mean, the way we designed this is that I'm going to tell my wife, I'm not going to tell her the time. I'm just going to call her at some particular time. In fact, I'm actually going to go out somewhere, so we have to use the ham radio to communicate. So I'm going to be out at the store somewhere, and I'm going to call her and say, there's been an earthquake, we need to evacuate, and then I'm going to coordinate coming home, see how long it takes to pack the car. Then we'll drive out to the Ramona airport, and then we'll just see what it would take to spend the night there.
That's amazing.
And have dinner. We'll have dinner out there. It'll be a romantic dinner by candlelight.
Those are the kinds of experiences that I'd like to capture, to put out so that we share those with each other and with our communities. And so
that's a great idea. You know what? I'll document the whole thing with pictures, because I'll share that on our on our ward page. But you can I'll send them to you as well, and you can use them. What
ward are you in?
I'm in the Lake Poway ward.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. That sounds like fun. So you kind of get an idea. All of you are doing really exciting things. And so, and we'll all learn from each other. That'll be a great experience. We'll all be doing that now for Friday night dates.
So Terry, one time we did many years ago. We did a live off the food that you have in the house for about a month. And that was interesting too, especially since drinking powdered milk wasn't the best fun thing for my kids. But hey,
I only laugh because I know.
yeah, I mean, it's good when I don't have a problem with it when it's cold, but my kids weren't all that happy, but we did fine. So it's always good to see, same with water. I think we did a week without water. We just lived on the water storage we had in our 55-gallon drums. And, we did have some water to drink, but that was interesting too. Try flushing your toilets with a bucket next to it.
Yeah, I have that experience every time I go up to my cabin during the winter. I have to go on the stove and use water to flush down the toilets. Got it. Check that one. All right. I was hoping we were going to have a few guests besides Beverly here tonight, but maybe they'll join us later. So I'll skip down. Anyone new here tonight? That hasn't been on this call before? Everybody's been here before. Brother Calder, have you been here before?
I haven't. I'm in the San Marcos stake, so thanks for having me.
Fabulous. And were you at the training in November, or was someone else from San Marcos there?
I was not.
Okay. I don't remember who that was off the top of my head, but we were really pleased to see that with San Marcos being newly formed in November or in October when we had our training, that there were 3 representatives from San Marcos. So
Brother Calder,
congratulations.
you're the rep for the High Council over.
Yes, I am. Yes,
There you go. There you go, Terry. I just outed him for you. So
Thank you. All right. And Brother Bonnet isn't here, but Mike, do you want to take a minute and talk about Brother Bonnet and his new calling?
I would love to. Brother Bonnet is a very good friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years, despite the fact that I still call him Brother Bonnet, because our names are both French. So I call him by his French name, but he doesn't call me Guimont. So anyway, but he has been, he's a go-getter. He's had experience. He's from Canada, and he was in the Army when he was in Canada, and he was specifically assigned, and they did a lot of communications. They set up a lot of antennas. So we've always had that in common. He's a pretty high-profile guy as far as assignments go in the church. He's been a bishop, and he's always seems to be involved in the Melchizedek priesthood quorums as leadership there. And he's one of those kind of guys that has the ability, as I said yesterday in our meeting, to get the job done. And he's very creative. So I know you all will enjoy working with him. He's going to get his amateur radio license, so that's exciting for us. And
what is his calling?
His calling currently, he's my assistant. He's second. Yeah, he's second. Yeah.
And so Brother Calder isn't aware of what your calling is, so maybe we ought to clarify.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm the outlier here. I'm in the. I work with all of the stakes in the mission, San Diego, Imperial County, as an emergency communications coordinator. And what I am trying to do, and what Elder Clark asked me to do, was to help the wards get themselves ready and help them understand what they need to do. And it's a great job. I love doing it. And the people that we work with are amazing. And it was really, really nice to be able to meet many of them at our live training meeting that we had. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing the communications with an S. Gets kind of confusing with just some, so I think just about everybody else here is communication oriented, right? And emergency response. So, yeah.
So the Communication Council, formerly Public Affairs, Stephen Egbert and I sit on that council as the coordinators for emergency response. We have an emergency response committee, and we asked for communications coordinators to be called as our counterparts in the response effort for the region. So Brother Guimon and Bonet will now sit on our committee as we plan out these monthly trainings that we're doing by Zoom and the big event in November. Brother Calder, you specifically are the High Council over what?
Emergency preparedness.
And that's what they're calling it?
That's,
So,
that's what we discussed, yes.
so we are different than preparedness. We are response. We're coordinating how we will respond in a disaster. The preparedness portion of it is fits right under that, but typically lives in the Provident Living, and certainly wards and stakes can combine that in a calling if they want to, but we prefer the callings to be a response calling that we can work with. It is outward facing, it's networking with the community, as well as the members, whereas preparedness is insular, working with the members and preparing them in the 72 hours, water storage, so forth and so on. So it tends to be a full-time position on its own in its thinking and networking and trainings. But if someone has the bandwidth to do both, then we certainly wouldn't tell them they couldn't. So, but just going forward, typically because we work with communications as the response partner, we see that in the past, high councils have divided that and someone else is over communications. We kind of would encourage, leaning towards combining that, and the same person should be over it. But again, as the ward and stakes see fit and understand the program and whatnot, we'll leave that to your discretion, your leader's discretion. But the other thing I wanted to say about that, oh, now it's going to escape me. I knew I should have written it down. The website, Sister Blaylock talked about our website. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It is sdpreparedness.com. And it lays out those callings that we're discussing and the responsibilities within those callings. And it's kind of a step, the homepage lands you on a 1, 2, 3 of the first things a stake should do. And preparing for that, and even to organizing an emergency response council once those callings are in play, so that you have a team working on strictly the response effort in your stake in advance, and putting a plan together and then meeting once a quarter to update that plan, always keeping it fresh. So you'll notice all that on the website. I'm just kind of giving you an overview. But do you have any questions before I move on?
No, thank you for the information. That the one thing that I have never thought of is how to start everything, and that's the one thing that we're learning with the San Marcos stake, is that there's no groundwork for any of it. So it's amazing how we take for granted the things that have already flowed. Even when they didn't flow properly, they were still flowing somewhere, and we don't have any of that right now. So we're definitely trying to figure it all out. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I interject here when you get a second, Terry?
Yes, please go right on.
I would just like to let you know, Brother Calder, that's kind of what I do in the communications side of things, is that I would love to have a conversation with the stake president and let him know that we're more than willing to help the wards in your stake up there, and the Elders Quorum presidents and Relief Society presidents, kind of get it clear in their head, first of all, what the councils are, how it's all organized, and secondly, to help them with any questions that they have. And they're also, we probably don't have a communications stake communications specialist at this point, but generally we would encourage them to jump in too. So Brother Guy.
Well, and I don't know, I know Brother Walk is here, and I don't know what his calling is. I know he's in communications either at his ward level or at the stake level, but some of the callings carried over from our previous stakes into our new stakes, just depending on how they reorganize the wards. But that's definitely something that I need to look into.
What is your calling, Rob?
wannabe. Well, I've been on this committee with you all for 3 years when I was the
Right.
Vista State Emergency Response Coordinator.
Right.
In the Shadow Ridge Ward now, Brother Caller, I'm the, the communications, the ham radio guy, right? So Mike,
that's
Guy
at-
and I work
Yeah, that's at the ward level for you.
at the
then.
ward level. So I do
Okay,
not
good,
have a
good, good.
state calling. I'm an Elders Quorum secretary. I'm a Sunday school teacher and a few other things, but and
So in your
and
spare time.
I lurk on this monthly committee meeting.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
And certainly, always feel free that you can reach out to us, Brother Egbert and I in the response level too, that we are willing to come up and help talk to anyone, walk them through it, do trainings, so forth and so on. So we're there to help you set it up. Okay, let me go down then to number 5. Do I hear some chatter? No, okay. On the agenda, one of the things we've been discussing last year leading up to our training that you didn't attend, so this is all new information for you, but for everyone else is we had generally done a once a year communications exercise in the fall, usually in conjunction with the October shakeout, following a conference usually. And we had encouraged over the years for stakes to broaden their capacity to work and exercise like that, rather than just once a year, just that thinking last minute, oh, it's coming up, I got to do it. Let's go through it. Let's get it done. Oh, good, it's over with. I don't have to think about it for another year. We felt like things were ramping up to the point where we needed to be a little bit more prepared in our response effort than that. So we've been encouraging stakes to do a spring exercise as well. We've have a few stakes on board, but most of them are still trying to get to that point. But in working with Elder Clark now, being very preparedness and response minded, he's very concerned that we are not prepared enough in a big event to be able to communicate with one another or locate our members or do the kind of reporting that we would want to see happen in a big event. So he's encouraging us to take it up a notch and do even a boots on the ground approach, which we kind of started with our training back in October last year. And we're going to really be focusing on it this year. In preparation for that, we encouraged stakes to do quarterly exercises last year, where it was just a stake working on its own within the wards and figuring out, their best communication practices. There was no reporting up the chain that was required. Generally, that happened in the October exercise. So for this year, starting fresh for January through March, we decided we are going to have a framework that helps wards and stakes build up even more, practicing for that bigger event in October, where we want to have in-person contacts only. So as outlined on the agenda, January to March, we'd like stakes to work with their wards to do the following: learn about mapping, how to map out an area, callings, making sure that callings are in place in the wards for an emergency response specialist and a communication specialist. Working with assigning within that mapping system block captains. Again, this is in preparation for in-person contact only communications. And there would be no reporting during that period of time, just that all through January through March, if someone could be called and then working on specifically facilitating this and making those things become a reality in the wards and stake, that's the main thing we want them to work on. Then April through June, we would step that up a bit and we'd ask them to continue, for those that still quite aren't there yet, working on those same steps. Only now we're going to add a reporting piece. And sometime April through June, we would like wards to work with the stake level or wards to work within the ward level, adding the bishop to that exercise so that they can learn how to get information in and back down the chain through the bishop. And then July through September, we'd add on to that, and now we would involve the stake president and conduct an exercise where now you've got block captains in play, you've got callings in play, you've got mapping in play, you're getting information on a certain day at a certain time to the bishop, and he's reporting that information up to the stake president. And then finally in October, it'll culminate in the big event where we get that information up to Sister Jimenez. I think through April through June and July through September, it'd be great if it can be with the idea of having the in-person contact.
Hey, Terry, Terry,
yeah.
question. Who is
Yeah.
Sister Jimenez?
Sister Jimenez is the stake, not the stake, the regional self-reliance and welfare area manager.
Okay, that's the first I've seen her name.
Yeah, so she's the one that during an event or during these exercises, the stake presidents with all their information they have gathered up to that point report to her. Any requests that are needed for supplies or food or whatever it is in stakes and wards, they go through her first. So that's the chain of command. So each one of these quarterly exercises is kind of geared to build the basic framework and then add a step from there. However, April through June and July through September, for reporting purposes, we would encourage any communications, or at least to, make it easier, starting with, texting or emails, phone calling. But by October, we'd like it to be only in-person contact. So the mapping, it will be really important to know where your closest neighbor is that you're going to be checking on, or member, I should say, and who can reach them in person.
Can I ask a question about mapping?
Yeah.
I don't want to get bogged down in details here, but I've been mapping out our ward for a very long time, which involves pulling all the member data out of the system, putting it in my own spreadsheet and making my own maps, which I really kind of enjoy it, but it's very labor intensive and it's not sustainable as a thing. What we really need is for the church's system, so that we don't have to take all that sensitive data and have it on my computer in a spreadsheet. If we could use the mapping in the church's system, if there was a field that we could put geographic data in that would be part of that person's record. We used to be able to do that with MLS because MLS was a local database and we could put our own stuff in there. But now we're dealing with the church's database, and they don't have fields for us to do just random things. If we could get the church, I realize it would probably take a database change for them to do this, and I can't see that happening. But to do mapping properly is very labor intensive with what we've got.
Mark, amen to that. And that's one of the things that I would like to discuss with Elder Clark and find out what committee is involved with that, because it's doable. It is very doable. You have to be able to select, when you're setting up these maps, you have to be able to select zones and then save those, those houses or those people in those areas, so that you can pull it up. And Mark, the biggest problem is updating it. And another thing that we've talked about is also encouraging people make sure that they update their maps at least quarterly during these exercises, or another time when they're not doing the exercise. But you hit the nail right on the head. To make this work, we need to have some good mapping. So I'm on that. I'm going to see what I can find and, pass the word along. I might get myself in trouble, but that's okay. Won't be the last time.
We need that. I have the same issue. Unfortunately, I have one guy in our ward who wrote the spreadsheet that it can still take the feed with the geocodes out of the old system, and he feeds it into the spreadsheet, and then it keeps all of my my maps all up to date. But if he moves out of the ward, it would fall apart because I don't know how to use it. And we're reliant on the ward clerks to know how to pull that old feed out. And so if the ward clerk changes, then that all will go away. So we really do need to have the church step up the geocode system that they used to have in some way or form, so that we can maintain these maps. It's truly, it's like Mark said, it's extremely labor intensive.
Yeah.
To maintain those. And
It's pretty easy to get defeated in the process.
yeah, I mean, I was gung ho a year ago, and now here I am a year later, and I'm like, this is a lot of work to keep up, and it just doesn't seem convenient. It seems like the church has really painted itself into a corner from this perspective of when they changed the system, that they completely eliminated the ability to map out the ward, and that's extremely frustrating to me.
Yeah, and just one more thing quickly. It was pretty easy for me to gather all the information out of the members' locations when my wife was the Relief Society president. I had access to all that stuff, but as a ward ER coordinator, I don't have access to any of that information except whatever's. So that's actually another point, that we should have access to that information. I realize we don't want to have access to their all the clerk stuff of what their church discipline or stuff might be going on, but we really need access to their contact information and their location information as ward emergency response people.
I like you. You're hitting it on the head. That's exactly right. We need to have access, and we need to have the software created, updated, whatever, so that we can, do everything we've already talked about. So yeah, happy to hear you say that.
Well, Mike, is that an action item then that you're going to take to run that up, to run that flag up? Or
Well, absolutely.
We talk about it, but we need to do something.
Well, here's my plan. I'm going to talk to, especially now since Elder Clark has said that we need to do what we're calling emergency ministering. So you're going to kind of have two ways you make assignments for ministering. One is going to be the regular way, which is which families and brothers and sisters would work together well. And then the other one is strictly geographic. And if we, as the people who are working on the planning this, can't access the data to put it together, then it's not going to work. It's too labor intensive. People leave their positions, and you got to start from scratch unless there's a record that the new people coming in have access to, and just look, okay, this is all set up. And wouldn't it be great if when the ward clerk sends somebody out of the ward, it automatically updates your map? I mean, that's all doable. I mean, we can do that. That can be done. And my plan is work locally, work with your bishop, maybe even your stake president, because they're the ones, I think, who put that marker in there. I'm not positive on that, but there are certain stake callings and ward callings that have access to those, certainly because of their leadership. But I haven't checked this out for sure, but your local unit, your local stake may be able to put you under an assignment when you have this assignment to allow you access. And once we explain to them how important that is for us, maybe we can do it that way. But I also talked to Elder Clark. I'm going to talk to him because he's gung ho on this. He's the guy who's saying we need this and we want this, but we won't be able to do it if we don't have access and we don't have sustainability in terms of creating a map and then going back to it again without having to recreate it.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of going against the grain of the church, because the church went away from the geocodes and went to the ministering brother and sister type method, where but that's not geographically oriented at all. It's just however the elders quorum president assigns the ministering, and then there may be one ministering brother who ministers to people clear on the other side of their ward. I talked to everyone in our stake. In every ward in our stake, and everyone other than our ward is using the minister brother and sister method to try to maintain a map, and it doesn't work.
No,
so it's not the way the church went. They kind of went away from the geocodes to the ministering system. So we're kind of going against the grain, but we need to get some traction.
They went to what's called the revelation system.
Yeah,
That's how ministry assignments are supposed to be.
right.
I've had a revelation, and I think the rest of us have too, that we can't do this if we don't have access in a tool we can work with.
Understood.
The question we have then, January situation says start working with this mapping, and everybody says it doesn't work. So, Terry, what do we do?
So we're working with Brother Guyman, and we're locating somebody in your stake that can, you know, if that's beyond you, that you can, that will have that knowledge and can help you with it. So that's why the mapping part I started with first, and we'll continue to work on it every month, because I don't imagine that, you know, we're going to solve it even to the point where we're in October 100%, but we're going to utilize whatever resources we have up until that point and do the best we can. And a failed, you know, attempt, when we report and say we couldn't contact anyone because we didn't have maps, you know, that's a report that goes in to show that there's a gap and there's a problem. So hopefully, again, when we're reporting up to the bishop, all of a sudden they get on board, they see, oh, this is a problem, and let me help you solve it. When we're including the stake president, if the bishop hasn't been able to solve it, you know, hopefully he sees this as a gap, there's a problem, we need to solve it, clear up till, you know, we get to Sister Jimenez. And all are on board. We've had these conversations with our area leaders up the chain. It's just, I think Elder Clark understands the problem. I just don't know where he is in the process of being able to solve that problem right now. So it's that consistent voice of, this continues to be an issue we need to solve if we're going to move forward, that we'll finally get it done. You know, I understand the frustration. I mean, Stephen Egbert and I, and certainly many of you have had our callings for quite a while. And we've been to that level where we're a little stymied. And what I have seen is, you know, patience, persistence, prayer, revelation, it all comes into play, that we have to kind of wait it out until all the pieces get put in the right position so that we can move forward. And I feel like with Elder Clark right now, working with us, that's definitely a piece that's helping us move forward. So we're going to continue to work the system as best we can, and utilize those resources we have, and till we get the right ear and the right person in play that helps all that last piece fall into place for us. That was wordy, I'm sorry, but.
Wasn't the way we used to do this is Steve, wasn't the way we used to do this, is that you go to some bishops and they'd have a big map up there and they have little magnetic markers or pins, and they would move them around, you know, so that it wasn't a piece of software, it was a
And they do that maybe 2 months, and then they don't do it anymore.
that some bishops found was valuable, but not all bishops, you know, organize their thinking geographically. Oh.
Yeah.
But they all think about it. And then
Brother
it's pretty
Bostic,
hard.
I know that you've had your hand up a few times. Was there anything you wanted to comment that I don't want to miss you if you had something you wanted to say?
I just concur with the access issue. That's been a big problem in our stake, getting the emergency response coordinators access to the information, all they need, et cetera. Yeah. So that's a major issue. I'm glad we're trying to address it. It won't be solved overnight, but I'm sure we're addressing it. And thank you for doing that. So that's great.
Yeah. And again,
based on what Rob has put up here, it's the information is very sensitive information. So in my mind, I guess when I was given this calling, my feeling was that it was really up to me in my ward and now in my stake to kind of take this on personally. So I think others have done similar things. I went as far as using the radios for all the block captains, but I think at this point, really, it's our individual responsibilities in our wards and in our stakes to probably take this on and at least for a stopgap until the church does something that's more proactive and allows us some kind of access to this data. We really just have to do it ourselves. And so I see that as part of my calling. As even though it's a headache, it's a lot of work. I'm glad that I have someone in the ward who is helping me, and I would say that it would be, appropriate for anybody to go to the bishop and say, I need an assistant or 2 assistants just to help me with the mapping.
Yeah.
I have a comment too.
I think-
So,
We have to also, have many of our stake church leaders didn't realize that the emergency response callings, we serve as actually lifeguards for our ward families. In case of emergency, we're responsible for coordinating and getting the word out and getting the information and getting access to the families and getting their needs solved. So that's a very important part of the emergency response coordinator. So that's why it's extremely important.
I was going to say, Brother DeGraw, you don't, what I use in my area for radios with the people that I'm in are walkie-talkies. As long as you stay within the 8 through 14 channels, that's the FRS channel. So people don't have to, you don't have to have all block captains have ham radios, and, it doesn't have to go that far, but if you're close enough, the newer walkie-talkies go a little bit farther, have a little bit more power. But that's what I do with mine, and I reach
Yeah,
everybody in my area.
I talked the bishop into buying, I bought GMRS radios. I even went so far as to put a GMRS radio repeater up within our ward so we could all talk to one another. And then I just interpreted, I bought the license myself. And then I interpreted the licensing law to say that it's for me and my extended family. And I just interpreted the ward as my extended family. I don't think they're going to come after me for that, especially in an emergency situation. I've communicated this with the ham community and told them pretty, within Poway that this is what I'm doing. Nobody seems to care. So, but it is something that I have to do a radio check pretty much once a month, just to keep the block captains. I got 25 block captains with radios, and I've got to keep them on their toes to keep the batteries charged and to have them call in. And some of them are on the simplex, some of them are on the repeater. So I have to maintain that network. But we use the radio at every one of the, at least for the last 2 exercises, everybody has done, they've done either text or email to reach out to the people in their block, but then they've reported to me via the GMRS radio, and then I use my ham radio to communicate with the stake. That way, all the block captains don't have to be ham operators, and they seem to have less of a fear to talk on the walkie-talkies than they do like to get on a ham radio. Oh, I got to know more. But so yeah, I agree. That's worked out great for our ward. There's been a lot of activity within the ward, and it's even now the city of Poway. I'm working with a couple of guys in the city of Poway. We're going to build a GMRS repeater for the whole city, and so that will be available to the whole city, at a given time.
Yeah,
That's
we're pretty
great.
excited. Yeah. All right, we better move on. Let me go down then to number 7 on the agenda, because we already kind of talked about number 6. This is kind of speaking to what you've been saying, and I wanted to add, staying consistent in the callings, finding someone that you can count on that can have longevity is a key, because if we're turning over people within 6 months or a year, then we're having to start all over again. That's networking with the community, that's working on mapping, that's everything we've been talking about tonight. It's difficult. It puts the ward and the stake in a difficult position and sets it back. So we're looking for people that, number one, can hopefully be long-term. I know you can't always count on that, but I would ask, again, those in the stake emergency response callings, and even in the ward callings in this sense, that you keep a log of what you are doing and write a basic manual for the next person that does step in, so that it doesn't take them a year to play catch up. Certainly there's always that learning curve in baptism by fire, but if there can be even a bullet point, step 1, step 2, step 3, start with the basics. And then if you're there long enough, you can start filling it out when you feel like you have time. But providing a working model of preparedness for your stake or ward is, I think, going to be key in helping us keep moving forward in this program. So that's kind of my other challenge task for you to be working on all year long. So these quarterly exercises and starting your basics manual for the next person. Any questions about that? Okay. So this year's in-person coordinating council training is going to be Saturday, September 16th of this year. Location and time to come as we get closer to that. But again, the theme will definitely be more of the boots on the ground idea and in-person contacting. Any questions about that before I move on? We had it at Mount Zion building. Was that right, Mike Guyman? Is that where we were last training?
No, we had it at the Mount Abernathy building, San Diego Stake.
Right. Is that an okay location, or does anyone feel like there's a different location we should do? Jerry Hansen, you're okay with the Mount Abernathy? Okay. Then probably Mike Guyman, could we ask you to block that out on the calendar for them? again this year?
Absolutely. I will get it
Okay.
scheduled.
Okay.
Do
Super.
they have their internet working good now?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's working good. And I'm in good with the tech people there for that. They're really good. They hook me up whatever I need whenever I need it. So
And just so you know, Mike Guyman and I were on a quarterly meeting with Stephen Egbert with Brother Kennedy. Elder Clark wasn't able to be there, but he certainly passes the information on, and we collaborate through him a lot of times for Elder Clark. But we are working on seeing if we can build a better system for media to be able to record it, transmit it, and make it more of a professional training for those that are there, but for those that can't be there, or even Zoom in if they need to be. So those are things that we're working on. Do you want to add anything to that, Brother Guyman?
no, that's what we need to do. This is important, and we need to have it not only live, people can come, but we also need to have it immediately available after we're done. And, and we also need to make sure as we get more media advance, and, we did I thought we did some neat things at this
We
last
did.
training session. And yeah, so we just need to make sure that that we can get the budget that we need to have not only the equipment, but also have people who have some training in how to do this. And so if things
Yeah.
go wrong, they can fix it and get us going again.
And I would say, when we're talking about callings, kind of going back on what we were talking about with the mapping, finding someone that can help you with this doesn't necessarily have to be a calling. Could be a good friend, and you're asking him to sit on the committee with you. That's kind of loosey-goosey what Mickey Cross sits on my emergency response committee, and Ron Earl of the Poway Stake. And they're not called to it, but they have a passion for it. They have the experience, and they're willing to do that. And that really helps me keep this whole thing going. So, it doesn't always have to be a calling. If you know someone with skill level that can fit the bill, and they have the bandwidth to help you, extend and reach out to them. And likewise, if you know of someone that can help us in our efforts through any of the stakes and wards that you think has great technical skill, we'd love to talk to them as well for anything we might need. But okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and go on to stake reports. Tell me anything since our training back in October, because we did have a meeting in November, a Thursday night meeting, but then we were dark for December. So anything new going on in your ward or stake? Tell me what you've been working on. I'm just going to go down the screen as I see people. So I'm going to start with Jerry Hansen. You're at the top of my screen list.
Oh, man. I don't know how many of you can see this red book that we received at our November meeting, but I had an opportunity to finally peruse through this. And I got to tell you, it's a great book. And I looked it up online, It's $29.95 for those that might be interested. It's pretty comprehensive when it comes to disaster recovery. Not much is really going on in the El Cajon stake in terms of things that have changed. We are still in the process of that, what do they call it?
Border 32.
32 border, thank you. And we have our final cleanup this Saturday, and that should wrap up that particular project. Mike, I was going to suggest that I can't believe that we are the only ones with this problem of getting information. I was thinking of maybe asking you to maybe check into Orange County, who is very proactive in the same kind of area, before you talk to President Clark. And because I'm finding that the communication ends of things doesn't have enough push to it when it comes to the church, as we all, I think, are aware of. But I'd sure like to hear what Orange County is doing, Mike.
Okay, thanks. I'll see if I can get some information from them.
Rather than reinvent the wheel and try to start over, what are they doing? What are some of the other regions? I don't know if you have any connections with anybody in any of the other stakes and wards, either in Utah or out of our area, that you could talk to as well.
Well, through my connection with Syra, I have access to a lot of,
Well, I was going to
of
suggest
Santa
that,
Barbara.
see if you could have some better ammunition before you unload on President Clark. And I don't, I mean that kindly. Don't come with
I'm
that.
just fulfilling his calling that he's given me and asked us to do. And he's been very responsive, but he there are limits to what he can do. We certainly, and that's what I'm concerned about. I don't want to put him
So
in a
Terry,
position that we
nothing
feel
like-
he's not supporting us, but yeah, we're good. I got you. That's a very good advice, Jerry. I appreciate it.
You bet, Mike. Thank you. And Terry, that's about all that I have at this point. I don't want to monopolize here.
Okay, Wayne Bostic, on to you.
Yes, well, we're happy to, our Saturday East Stake, we're hosting a ham radio operator training session on 4 March. So we're very happy about that, getting people signed up and so on. So in fact, I've signed up myself. I'm going to take the training session, but our stake is sponsoring that. So we're happy about that. We're encouraging it. So we're very enthused that that's going to be a full session and stuff. So we're happy about that.
Yeah.
Now, another item I want to bring up, I'd like to get input on the viability of a fixed ham radio operation. So the bishop in our Spanish branch, a Spanish ward, he has now access to a ham radio and so on. So we're considering, he's considering installing it at his church's location. And so I want to get the input. I guess that still makes good sense to be able to do that. Or if there's any opinions.
Yeah, they've actually asked us not to store any ham radio equipment in the buildings, just for liability insurance.
Really?
Just have it a member, they prefer a member have it and then it be mobile, so that there's access.
Wow.
But
We have an installation in one of our wards.
Yeah, Wayne, you wouldn't know that the church has asked us not to do that by visiting the facilities, because many of them have radios in there, and it's a wink, wink, nod, nod. And general authorities have said, I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to know it, and I know nothing. So yeah, but just in the last few years, there have been several ward buildings that were completely unsafe to enter. So if you had your radio in there and you were going to go to that cool little place that you put together in your facility, you couldn't, because the building was damaged. So having a dynamic ability to set up wherever you can makes a lot of sense. So
I'm wondering how I should advise my bishop in the Spanish ward.
I think we're back to Revelation. Inspiration of this Revelation.
I'll advise him accordingly. Okay.
listen to the bishop.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Okay, I have another item I want to also bring up and get your input. Technology is such that satellite phones are now very effective. And would it make sense for the stake and the wards to make sure they have viable, secure, viable communications that's reliable? consider satellite phones? Or is that off the,
That's
Well-
that's a moving target. It seems to me that that changes over time. As the technology changes, they're very expensive.
well, they're
So-
not that bad. If you look at it, you could, but, okay.
It's the
Well, compared to
subscription.
other methods, they are, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And,
I think-
and you're right, I haven't looked at the prices recently.
So,
I-
go ahead.
I think the thing to consider is, again, not only price, but, when things change hands, those things tend to get lost.
And there's a
And they're
license.
spreading all over. So it kind of goes back to, that manual and procedure and who has what and who's on first. If it's something that somebody's willing to keep track of, Wayne Bostic, for your stake, then, and you want to take that on, I wouldn't discourage it if that's where your leadership feels they want to go.
Well, I just had the option, so maybe it doesn't make sense at this point in time, but, okay. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Anybody else have input on that? Am
I believe I looked into it myself, and I think there's a license also that you have to maintain. For
Yeah.
for the sat phone.
Yep.
to know?
But there are some circumstances when you're looking at emergency operations centers that they may make sense.
Yeah, I was thinking, communications between the stake and the individual bishops of the wards.
Yeah.
Not only that. So,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
There is some information on the church website about satellite phones too. They give some direction there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Under what, Mike?
Satellite phones.
Under the area emergency guide, or where would we find it specifically? Under,
I would search for satellite phones
Okay,
because
I'll-
like I say, whenever you go on, if you go on the the church website
It's under
and you start
communications
looking
somewhere.
for emergency response or whatever, you immediately head in a rabbit hole where
exactly.
it takes
Exactly.
you left, right, up, down. So when I do searches like that, I do it specifically for what I want to know.
Okay.
Satellite phones, and you'll find it. And then it'll take you down another rabbit hole.
Thank you, Mike.
Mark Jacobson, do you have anything to add for the San Diego East State? Okay. And Rob Walk or Brother Calder, you want to contribute for San Marcos?
I'll defer to Brother Calder. He's got the state calling. I'm just the lurker.
Well, I have nothing, so I'll defer for the interest of time and not having anything interesting to say.
Okay, hopefully this has been informative and we've given you something to go back and chew on, right? Okay, Mickey for Del Mar.
Okay, well, before I get into it, I just wanted to say, Jerry, that book looked a lot like the one that OES gives out for free. So you, rather than buying a book, you can order it through them and pick it up. And, I've done that before. I've picked up multiple ones and dropped it off at each, with each ward rep and told them, or each building, and had them put it out in the foyer so people could take it if they wanted it.
Thank you for that. I did not know how that was available. I figured it might be, but I wasn't sure how. So
It's
thank you
smaller
for
than that, but it holds, it might be about the same size.
this.
But
Is,
yeah,
Can I
get it at Office of Emergency Services. Call them
Yeah,
ahead of
I'm-
time to make sure they have it.
I suspect you're probably right. Thank you.
Yeah,
For
it's
those
free.
that don't know about Office of Emergency Services, we do have the San Diego Office of Emergency Services connected to the Cal State Office of Emergency Services. And they're in Kearney Mesa, they're somewhere off of Overland. You can go anytime and pick up cases of materials, whether it's, a planning guide. for your-
Brochures, everything,
Yeah,
right? And they're not too
brochures.
far. They're not too far from HRO, if you know where HRO is, just down the street to the east.
Right.
I usually go down there and get off on Claremont Mesa Boulevard, hang a left and go past, down the street, down Claremont Mesa Boulevard. And it's like one or two exits, now maybe about 2 or 3 exits down. I think it's the second exit down.
Google it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
add their
want to
contact
add, they're
information.
very, very helpful. Previous card, I want to get emergency prepare information. I went and talked to them and so on. And they loaded me up all kinds of information I distribute throughout our stake. And I got a big box in my car.
Yep.
So they're very, very helpful and very considerate. Absolutely.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yep.
And so beyond that, I did get to, we had this month, we've had an emergency, I'm sorry, the Communications Council meeting. So I attended that and it was very informative. They're doing a good job. So that's about it.
Okay, what are they doing?
Oh, they were discussing, well, I talked about, getting communications a little bit better organized, with practicing worst case scenario versus just texting. I said, we all know how to text and phone. My husband he ministers to somebody we're at the far north end of our stake and he ministers to somebody at the far south end of our stake. So in an emergency, we could never get over there. We talked, I talked about that, about focusing on that because we all know how to do the other stuff. Let's do worst case scenario. We had people talking about the Mormon Battalion and getting that set up and working with that as other groups are doing, or other stakes are helping out with Mormon Battalion. And I can't remember. I couldn't stay too long because I had to get back for ham radio nets, but I did stay for some of it. Well, they did it on a Thursday, they did it on a Sunday, which was even worse.
Oh yeah,
Two
a couple.
nets.
Right. All right, just for anyone that doesn't check, Rob Walk has provided information in the chat on those satellite and then the mapping.
But it's not information you want to hear, but
Yeah.
it's there. Sorry. I'm the downer for the meeting here.
Buzzkill.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go with the Griffins, PQ stake.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay. Anything in the wings that you're working on that you're got coming up?
We have a fairly new stake president and a very good high counselor that's really active. That's been our biggest problem for the last 5 years. High counselors never got involved. So we're hoping that that's going to work out. It seems like he's very active in this. So we're hoping that we can be able to, especially this mapping. I've always been dreading the mapping because we used to do that many years ago and no one ever did it then either. So if we do it electronically, that would be just marvelous. So thank you very much.
Okay, absolutely. Mike DeGraff, Poway stake.
Oh, just want to thank you so much for filling in for me. I was so down. So that was really the first stake emergency response committee meeting. I reviewed all the notes you took. I appreciate that very much. I do have a copy of the emergency response plan that I'm getting ready to send out to all the committee members. And I have appointments to talk with the stake young men's president, primary president, and young women's, so we can include them into the committee as well. So hopefully we'll have another meeting in March, and I'll invite you to that again if you want to come.
Yeah.
In our stake, but we'll continue with those and hopefully get that. And the other thing that I did is Beverly mentioned that she'd put all these emergency packs essentially each of the buildings. My wife and I went and inventoried each one of them, and all the food was outdated. So we bought new food for the emergency packs, and I'll be distributing those over the next few weeks.
That's fabulous. And I guess that's something that's not on my agenda, but another task, I'm adding number 3 now to your list, would be, we'd like you to have those emergency response coordination meetings once a quarter. And so here we are in January. It's a good time to have that first meeting. We do rely on our stake emergency response coordinators to facilitate that meeting. Invite your priesthood leadership, your ward clerk, all the heads of your organizations, anyone who would be called into play in an emergency. Bring out that old plan or start a new one, and then.
So this is different than the meeting that I had.
No, that's the meeting you just had.
Okay, so that's the one I had in January. I have another one in March.
correct. So, but I just
Well,
want.
we'll
if-
expand it out. I mean, I think everyone showed up that I invited, but that was kind of the basic crew.
That's a
And-
basic, we could fill it out a little bit more, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have plans for that.
okay. With
And
that,
also, I did, just for your sake, I did map out, because I had that repeater, I had Dan was able to, he has software that maps out what the repeater coverage is. And so I got the repeater coverage for our ward, and it covers a lot of our stake. And so I have I'll continue to follow up with Rob, and he has his emergency response radios from the city. And so he's gonna connect up to that repeater, and then my next step would be get one for the stake president. So we have a direct line to get anything up to the stake president via a non-licensed, method through that repeater.
that's excellent. And hang on just a minute, Mickey, but, talk about waiting for the right pieces to fall in place. Same thing. You've got a new high councilman who is just, his whole background is in emergency response and preparedness. So he is the right person for this to help you move that forward. That's great. Mickey, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I forgot to mention one thing. We may have some issues in our stake. We have our stake, my brain's gone. Our stake meeting, over the, I don't know why my brain is gone. My goodness. Okay.
Emergency response?
No,
Your
state
emergency
conference.
response-
State
Oh, state
conference. We have
conference.
state conference next month in our stake. And there's going to be some redistricting boundaries because one of the wards is apparently woefully underpopulated. So I don't know how that's going to change anything, but there might be people moved around or taken out of position. So we may have new people in different areas based on where they move. This is scuttlebutt. I haven't heard this. I just kind of heard this through the grapevine, but that's what I hear is going to happen in our state conference
Good to know.
in February. So I don't
Okay.
know what's going to happen to our emergency response specialists.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's just the way it rolls, and then we got to be prepared for that too. That's all part of the plan. I know in the Poway stake, we've got the general ham radio test coming up February 4th in our Poway Twin Peaks building. And we have a community meeting that Mike is going to run for our community, and he's going to be teaching them backup options, power backup options, solar generator, battery, what's out there and how to, for people that want to learn more about that. So those are the things that we have going on in Poway. Anything else, Mike?
I just have a question. I'm preparing a PowerPoint presentation for that. Does that facility have the ability to project onto a large screen? Or
They
why-
do need it ahead of time so that they can prepare it. This new city emergency manager, Jenna Stein, started this week,
Yeah,
and we just need to get it to her. She'll be working with facilities. So
okay,
she,
because I
that
will
ready.
need something I will have something to project, so.
perfect. I sent out a Poway City newsletter.
I saw
So
that.
you just thought her contact information is on there.
Okay,
So you can send it by email or call her on her cell or work.
okay.
Okay. All right, now, who am I missing here? James, I can't remember what area you're with.
Yeah, I'm the Carlsbad stake. I don't
That's
really
right.
have much to update from previous discussions. I will concur with difficulty in mapping. I mean, we really did that in our ward, and it was obsolete pretty much when we got it done because of all the move-ins and stuff like that. So it's a bear to keep in place until they automate it. But having a 90% solution is better than not knowing anything at all. So,
Right,
and
Right.
also trying to map those that have handicap and special needs, making a special indicator on them and trying to follow up with the ministering is kind of really where we're at on that. But
Yep.
again, mixed results across the stake, same old problems.
yep, well, keep plugging on because eventually it's gonna fall into place and we're gonna get it working. So we appreciate your persistence. Mike Diamond.
One little thing that I might mention here as we're involved in this, if you have special wards in your stake, you have singles wards or you have membership that will be coming out of your area, then that's a different thing. And we shouldn't forget about those people who don't live in our area. In other words, our singles, we have 2 singles wards in our stake, young and mid singles, and they're all over the county. So I think you would serve them well if you were to find out who their bishops were, contact their bishops, and make sure that they're aware that, that they are in that area. You understand what I'm saying? Because they may be missed. The ward, geographically, they may be missed because they're not attending church there and their membership isn't even there, I don't think. But anyway, that's just something you tuck in your plan there to address that for your stake at some point in time.
Yeah, in fact, we talked about that as well. And each person, like we have a Spanish branch, we have a Farsi branch, and we have a singles ward in the Del Mar stake. And my comment was that what we need to do is make sure they know in the area that they live in who a contact person, like you said, in that ward is, so that they can contact them in an emergency and let them know make sure they understand what ward they're in, so that that word can get back to the bishop in the ward that they're actually in. Like you said, Farsi, Spanish branch.
We have a deaf branch. That's quite a challenge for us, a deaf branch.
Yeah, and I know I've invited them to our emergency response training, and they really feel like they are the stepchild in all of this. So yeah, we got to figure out ways to reach out to them better.
Well,
all right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the branch president is trying to get his license. He's taken a test a time or 2.
Excellent.
But he's going to keep trying. Yeah, it'll be
Excellent.
really helpful.
All right. Well, I think that's hits everybody. If I miss someone, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, good.
Gary, can I ask a question?
Let me
Yes.
ask a question, Terry. This is Steve.
Okay, Beverly first, then Steve Egbert.
Okay. One of the things that my calling includes is working with your stake social media specialists. And so I'm not sure. I think it'll be really important for you, if you haven't already reached out to that person, to help you get the word out by social media to your members whenever you have these ward or stake events. And then if there's something that's kind of general, I'll be working with Terry to make sure that social media, that I can push down information to your stake social media specialists as well, for them to post on your stake pages. So anyway, I just encourage you to know who your stake social media specialist is. When I was in El Cajon, Jerry was always sending me wonderful activities and asked me to put them on Facebook. And so do the same with your group. That's all I wanted to say.
Perfect. Stephen Egbert.
Well, one thing that Terry's been busy with the rains and the roofing business, and I'm up at a funeral. So I think for the last 2 months, we both missed our VOAD meeting. I was going to ask if there's anyone attending tonight that happened to be either to the December or January VOAD meeting and would tell us what they remember hearing.
Well, I
Okay.
attended, but I can't remember.
What? One thing I do know is I believe they're planning a big countywide disaster drill. Is that right? In February?
I
San
can't get
Diego.
any information on it. They mentioned it in the VOAD meeting, I think in either in November or December, whichever, the last one I attended. And I think I asked you, and I think I reached out to Stephen to find out what that is. I can't get any information on it.
I was directed, back to San Diego OES and talking to Dustin Ivers or another gentleman that I can't remember his name. And I've been negligent to reach out to them. I meant to do that prior to this meeting so I could report back to you. And I just didn't get that done. So if I find that out when I send out the minutes.
Did Jerry
I'll
say
contact info.
Okay. Did Jerry say he was at one of those meetings, or did he say he was not?
I was at both of those. And Terry, are you thinking of Gallagher, by the way, on that
Mike
gentleman's name?
Gallagher, it could be the other name. I'm not sure.
Can I just take 1 second? I need to put a plug in for our cannery. The bulk storage side of things. The Bishop Storehouse side is the one side, the bulk storage is the other. Ken Carr, who works up there on Wednesdays, is really lonely. I don't think that we as a church are utilizing the facilities and the food that is available to us out there. I guess what I'm really asking is to put a plea into the wards or the Relief Society presidents. The food that they do have is outstanding. The dry food that they have is wonderful. Their potato flakes are outstanding. So I don't know what's going to happen to it if people don't start utilizing it and buying the bulk storage that we need. So that's my plea.
Good point. A lot of people think it's closed still.
Social media, Bev?
Yes, I've been working with someone else to make sure that I have all of the accurate information on the address and hours and, when people can go and who can go and all of the information. And then I was planning on putting a Facebook post together and pushing it down to all the social media specialists. I was going to do that this week, but this week is kind of gone already. So maybe next week.
So any of you?
Yeah,
ahead.
I do. Ken Carr is actually over the temple committee, and we work with him on the Christmas lights. And
Oh,
so Beverly, if you want to text me or email me, I've got his phone number and information. I'll be glad to give it to you.
yeah, I have that. I have his information too. So knowing that
Okay.
he's the one, I'll just give him a call.
Yeah, he's in the Ramona, I don't know,
Yeah.
Ramona Ward, but he's in that stake up there. But
Right.
heck of a nice guy. Like I said, we've known him for a number of years. And anyways, I would just ask you that might be going by and have a minute, drop by there. He's got some freebie food to give
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
One thing you can do too, I did this for my ward. I had the Relief Society put out a thing saying that I was going to go down to the home storage center. So if anybody needed something, let me know. And I did pick up a few things for some of the ward members. Not a ton, didn't get that big of a response, but I did put out, they put that information out in the Relief Society bulletin. And I send it out in my Get Ready Gazette for everybody to see the hours for the home storage center and to pass it on to their neighbors because it's open to the public.
Mhm.
Mickey, we did the same thing. My wife was actually in charge of all that. And like you I don't think we really got any response. I was very disappointed. I don't know how to resurrect that, but
All you can do is put it out there and invite. And if people don't utilize it, then whatever needs to happen, happens.
thank you.
I think part of the problem is that I'm not, for me, I didn't think it was something that I could use because I mixed it up with the bishop's recommendation for people to go and the Relief Society, for people who need to have that help. So I think that there's maybe a lot of people who simply don't realize that there's a difference between the two programs. So that was something I was going to try to, focus on in the Facebook post.
We had
'Cause
scheduled Sister Jimenez to come and speak to address us at our last live training to help people understand what's set up. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it, but yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to keep working on that, aren't we, Terry, to try to get her to
Yep.
give us
Yep.
more.
okay.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartely. I went visit about 2 months ago and I was there for an hour at both places and had no patrons whatsoever. And I took a picture of the foods that are available, what stores and so and so. I put a collage of it and we distributed with our steak so that people get the idea of, hey, it's really well stocked with quality items.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when you did that. Thank you. And so anyone else, you haven't pushed that out to your wards and stakes, there you go. That's something you can push out. All right, so VOAD, any other news that we should cover that we haven't talked about? That someone wants to bring up? Okay. That's all I have for now. But we'll again meet next February, third Thursday. Did I put a date when that is? The 16th. So mark that on your calendars. I think Mike's recorded this, so I'll put together minutes and send it out, and we'll put the recording out too. It'd be good for Elder Clark maybe to have and view. I'm sure he will. He's always good at reviewing. So we'll take all these things up with our committees that be and the leadership that be, and we'll keep working on the progress, and we'll report back to you on any changes. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Stephen Egbert, for taking time out of your family to be with us tonight and your input. We appreciate you. And with that being said, I'm going to ask Sister Blaylock, would you mind giving our closing prayer tonight?
Happy to. Our dear Father in heaven, we're so grateful to have been in attendance this evening, to be able to discuss and share ideas to help keep our church members safe and to be prepared for any emergency that might come our way. We're grateful for the church and the teachings and for all of the talents and energy that is represented by the members of this committee who are just so passionate about helping all of us. And we appreciate that so much, Father, that we have this organization to help us work together to do things that we need to do. And we're so grateful for the leaders and for all of those who serve. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone, for all your hard work. You really inspire me and keep me going. So we'll reconvene next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Beverly, it's good to have you on board. We miss you in El Cajon, but we appreciate the job in the regional area. And Terry, thank you so much for everything.
Yep, absolutely. Good night, everyone.
Good night.